Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me?
With your host, Brandon Tierney. In 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? BT Unleashed on this Monday. Pretty much a little something for everybody today. Just a good sports weekend, man. A lot of stuff to get to. Obviously, baseball's underway. We'll get to the Johnnies. Oh, my God. We'll get to the Johnnies. My God. I'm sitting there. I'm saying, here we go. We're going to the Elite Eight. I really thought they were going to do it. We'll obviously talk about that. Final Four. Little Knicks OKC. We got a lot of stuff going on. All right, so let me at least let you know about a couple things coming up this week. Number one, so episode number 2 of the Jets Collective coming up on Tuesday of this week. Wednesday. Last week was Tuesday. This week is Wednesday. Going to be absolutely phenomenal. So it's myself, and it's Jake, and it is Rich Cimini, and we banged out the first episode a week ago. Can't wait to get back into it with the guys this week as we get a little closer to the draft. Like the first episode was largely about, bigger ticket issues, more macro, Muji, Aaron Glenn, the roster, the free agency. Now we really start dialing in on, all right, even though we got into some of the Ty Simpson stuff as well, what are the Jets going to do with the draft? So that's coming up on Wednesday. Can't wait. And by the way, we got something else big coming up this week. Now, I believe it's going to be Wednesday, but lock it in this week. You know who's coming on the show. Yeah, you know who it is, J-Rod. J-Rod's idol. And my boy, that lunatic, that guy. Now, you want to talk about somebody who's always in a media feud. I don't know how he's got the energy to do it. I mean, keeping up with Whitlock and Michelle Beadle and, everybody. He is always embroiled in something. The man, the absolute legend, Stephen A., will be on Unleashed this week. Can't wait. And I really think, Jay, I think it's going to be a really different conversation because you know that I know Stephen for a long time. We go back a long ways, right? And there's just so much to get into because, what I'm going to be able to do that a lot of people that talk to Stephen really aren't able to do is kind of trace, I guess they could, but it's not nearly as intimate because they didn't know him when I first met Steve. His star was just taking off there. So, yeah, we'll do a little Knicks. We'll talk about some other stuff, but it's going to be an awesome conversation. And I know that you were jacked up for this because J-Rod was telling me he's basically one of your idols, he's on the short list. Like, you love Steven.
Yeah, when I was a kid, dude, this guy was the man. Literally, I used to spend my entire day just with him up on my YouTube, just sitting like this, sitting back, listening to this guy go wild. So, cannot wait. Yeah. I remember doing impressions of him with my boys.
Really? You got a Stephen A. impression?
This is preposterous. We'll work on it before.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Yeah. We'll work on that a little bit. Well, but I got to correct you. You said that when you were growing up, Stephen A. was the legend. He's still the man. Nobody surpassed him. He's still the guy. McAfee's kind of, narrowing the race a little bit in terms of the top dog in the media, but Stephen A. is still
in the race. It's like Stephen A. is still up here, and he's like that because it's just Stephen A. just has such a. I forget who described it well. I think Don LaGreca. It's just the personality is killer.
Oh, my God.
It cuts through. It really
Stephen A. can talk about the most mundane, benign, boring thing, and it just seems like it's the most important topic in the world. That's part of the conversation. So Stephen A. is going to join me this week, and I cannot wait. I told you guys, we get a little deeper into this. We'll start rolling out the guest. And if you guys are new to the show, what's going on? Welcome to Unleashed. Hope everybody's doing well. If you've been around the show, but you don't know about some of the interviews we've had and you want to go catch up, we had Michael Kay on, we had Don LaGreca on, we've got Stephen A. coming on, we had Rick Pitino on, and speaking of Rick Pitino, let's get into this, man. I got to tell you, Jay, I don't know, I'm trying to think about the moments of heartbreak in my sports career, and this is like my sports broadcast, and really even just my fandom, because there's a couple that certainly jump out. For me, I always look back at the 1998 AFC Championship game with the Jets and the Broncos. Jets rolled into Denver. I thought they had a better team. Elway was obviously older. He wound up cracking through, getting 2 championships in a row, but the Jets were up that game. They blocked a punt right before the half. That was Blake Spence, and then Curtis ran one in from 1 yard. I believe it was 10-0 at the half. Vinny came out slinging, hit like his first 8 passes. And I remember my parents I was still living at home. I was just out of school. I believe they were down in Florida at a wedding. They were definitely away. And I hadn't yet had my own first apartment. So I had a bunch of people in my parents' basement. And I remember actually going online, like dial up my mom and dad's computer in the back of the basement. And I started like a complete knucklehead mush. Yeah, put me in the bathroom. Put me in there. I probably deserve it. I'm looking at airline prices. I'm like hotel, like we're the Super Bowl. You know, I jumped in a little bit early because I had gotten this funny. I had gotten, I may have told this before, so I'll make it real quick. When you go to these games and I don't know if they still do it, but there was a minute where a good 5 or 6 year span, you'd go to games, you'd sign up for a credit card, you'd get the credit card eventually with that team's logo on the credit card, and they would give you a T-shirt for signing up for the credit card. Remember that stuff?
I'm not at all.
Okay, so it is. So it's been a long time.
It might be a little prior to my like sports fandom knowledge.
Gotcha. And that was, and anyway, I used this when I had season tickets for the Jets, and so I guess I got it that year in 1998 when the Jets went 12-4, and I made a promise to myself. I said, I am not using this on any, like the first purchase is my first credit card. My first purchase will be to go and watch the Jets in the Super Bowl because I knew they were really good that year. And I knew they had a chance. Anyway, that was just torment. That was heartbreak. And I don't mean like the years where the Jets are irrelevant or the Yankees get knocked out in like the first or the second, like a wild card game with, Dallas Keuchel or Garrett Cole at the Red Sox a couple of years. I'm talking about that hurt, that deep pain that just pulsates through your body and almost sucks the life out of you. That was your boy on Friday night.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Oh, God, I don't know that you can, man. That was your boy Friday night. First of all, the atmosphere was phenomenal. Like the St. John's contingent that showed up, it was loud, it was red, it was discernible, and it was optimistic. I mean, now Duke jumped on him early 11-4, and I'm like, I'm saying to myself, oh, boy, like you need to stabilize this quick. And I think Zuby, somebody hit a three. I think it may have been Zuby. And I'm like, okay, just hang around here before you get to sink your teeth into him defensively, which I thought St. John's would do a better job. They got pushed around by Cam Boozer. But as the game's developing, I remember saying to Mink at one point during the broadcast, I'm like, this is live on the air. I'm like, Mink, time is going backwards right now. It was going so painfully slow when St. John's took I believe it was 53-43 with like 15:01 to go. Ian Jackson hit a pull-up jump shot. And at that point, I'm sitting there. Now, you don't want to necessarily do this on the air, but internally, you don't think that my mind is somewhat like players can't do this and coaches can't do this, but broadcasters can do this. And I'm sitting there right next to Ming, courtside. Like Vaccaro's there, Ian O'Connor's there, the 5 people, who write and cover about St. John's every game is there. Nikki's there from SNY. Yeah. I mean, Perry's there from Channel 11. You've got people, now they've been there all year, but you've got people that really kind of like Vaccaro, who I love, who kind of jumped in, like the Big East tournament, the big events. Everybody that has a laptop and a voice in college sports or a columnist is there. And like Mike Rapoli is right behind me, the St. John's, basically the St. John's owner, if you want to look at it that way, who's cutting all the big checks. And like every time there's he's literally right behind me, him and like 5 of his boys. He's got a St. John's starter jacket on. And every time something big happens, like I kind of look at him, like where he was literally close. We could dap up. Like I felt it. I'm sitting there saying they're going to go to the Elite Eight. I actually thought, I'll get to the Duke. Wow. I mean, the UConn win, yes, I'll get to that as well. But I actually thought that Michigan State was going to beat UConn. That's what I thought.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Myself, I did. I was surprised at that, how UConn wound up winning that game. So, and I really didn't know how, in my mind, as this is transpiring, I didn't really know how St. John's would stack up with Michigan State. I've obviously seen them play a little bit this year, but much more entrenched in the Big East. It was heartbreak, dude. I got to tell you, man, and again, I started telling you about like the Jets game in 98, the Yankees in 2001, broken bat base hit off Mariano, game 7 against the Diamondbacks. Like that was a crusher for a different reason because that was 9/11. And of course I wanted the Yankees to win because I'm a Yankee fan, but I really wanted that for New York, man.
Yeah.
President Bush came out through a strike. Everything that happened, just the sheer destruction of lives. I thought it would have been at least a temporary respite for those who lost, family members who were Yankee fans, and just kind of uplift the city as the smoke was still smoldering from the World Trade Center. That was different. That's a next level hurt. That's a deeper hurt. That's a much more meaningful hurt. But in terms of any game that I've ever watched or any game that I've ever been a part of, it was inconsolable strong, because you got to pick yourself up and you got to keep it moving. But I got to tell you, Jared, when I went into that locker room, now understand, like I call the games. I'm not a St. John's reporter. Like I'm really part of the program if you think about it. Like, I mean, on a very distant level.
Sure.
But, I'm not there to like break news or start controversy. I call the games. I do the TV show with Rick. There's a lot of things that I know that I don't say. Like it broke yesterday that Rick signed his restructured contract.
Yep, I just saw that as well.
Yeah, you saw that. I actually knew that in San Diego because Mike Rapoli told me having breakfast. But now, if I wanted to go out there and break some news and get a few more clicks, like that would have been very easy for me to do. But I don't operate that with St. John's. They tell me things in trust, and I keep it here. But it was when I walked into that locker room, man. I mean, everybody had tears in their eyes, and I was just kind of watching because I don't really have a role post game. I'm not there to ask questions. That's like Bruce Beck and that's Nikki with SNY and all the writers. So I did go to a couple of the scrums here, and Bryce Hopkins was, I mean, it was next level pain. It was next level hurt. It was, it's really hard to describe, and this applies to St. John's, and this applies to any team that you root for, that you truly love, and that you truly dedicate a lot of time to, and your fandom, and not to mention money and all that stuff. But it's so, even though it should never usurp real life, it's such a deviation from real life that it almost takes on a higher importance, which it's clearly not. But on some level, it does, because as I've always said, life is hard. Life is tricky. There's a lot of things. Your parents, and if you're a dad, if you're a mom, if your kids have issues, real life mortgages and car payments, and I mean, it's hard. So when you get to deviate and kind of shut that part of your brain off and immerse yourself in something that you love for so long, and then it just ends. Yeah. And like, that's the hard thing about certainly college athletics, is that you're saying goodbye to these young men. And once everybody was done with Bryce, and he was emotional, man. I gave him a really big hug, and I've got to know Bryce pretty well. Matter of fact, I spent about an hour and a half with his dad in the restaurant on, let's see, the game was on Thursday night. With a few St. John's boosters, and his dad's name is Clyde. Played basketball, I believe he said Tennessee Tech. What a great dude. What a great man. What a great family. Just, you get to know these people on a more interpersonal level, and then it just abruptly ends, and the plug is pulled out of the wall. Like, there's no, like, I remember texting my son. I'm like, it's crazy. He was heartbroken, my God. It's crazy to think that Zuby will never take another shot for St. John's. Like, when the Yankees end, or when, if the Knicks don't win the championship this year, and I'll get to the Knicks OKC later, or do a lot of baseball, a lot of stuff today, obviously starting with St. John's because I was there, and it's a big part of my of what I do. But to think that, if the Knicks were to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, that Jalen Brunson's back on the team. That, like, all right, you might have a new coach, you might make a trade at some point, but the core is still going to be there. In college basketball, you're all in, and not just St. John's, all these teams. It's a complete reset of the roster. It was absolutely crushing to watch these young men. I mean, they comported themselves with such class in the post game. Dylan Mitchell and Zuby and Rick, and their eyes were red. And I told you, I got a chance to talk to Bryce, and I remember I went up to Dylan Darling was with Steve Serby from the Post and some others. And I was waiting for everybody to leave. And again, I got to know Dylan pretty well, too. Interviewed him a bunch. Had a chance to talk to him a lot this year. And, it's funny. He had tears in his eyes. And I didn't think I was going to get choked up. I did a little bit with him, because I said, man, what do you say to somebody who, even though he's going to be back next year, what do you say in the moment except to let them know that you really appreciate them? And that's really that was my only agenda. Not looking for a story, not looking for a soundbite, just, heart to heart, grown man to young man. Thanks for the ride. And I remember as I could see his eyes were really red. And I said to him, man, as well, I got choked up a little bit. I'm like, wow. I said, I just want to tell you, thank you for, the memories that you've created for my family. Like my son loves watching you play. And as that was coming out, I could actually feel myself getting a little choked up. So it was an amazing run. Incredibly sad that it's over. I think St. John's would have beat UConn yesterday, but you don't know. It doesn't matter. Tip of the cap to the Huskies. They are a tremendous program. That shot by Mullins was ridiculous. I mean, all-time shot. You want to talk about Keith Smart. Obviously, that's a national championship, but Keith Smart in 87 against Syracuse for the baseline jump shot. For Bobby Knight's Hoosier, some other shots, of course.
Christian Leitner. Jordan Poole, Michigan. And
there you go.
This is right there. I mean, straight up.
It's not the championship. It's not the Final Four, but the degree of difficulty and the sequence that first of all, they were down by 15 points. You think it's a wrap.
Yeah.
You think it's done. And listen, the respect that I have for UConn, and count me as a Danny Hurley fan. I know he's out of his mind. I know he's nuts. I know some people have an issue with it. I love Danny Hurley because he's one of the few throwbacks, and he represents a time where, you can show emotion and not really care what people think. Like, people chastise him all the time. Now he is out of pocket sometimes, to be fair, but that's more because I think society's changed. There's been a shift in how people, what people are willing to accept in terms of discipline and energy. But give me a guy like Danny Hurley. Give me a guy like Rick Pitino any day of the week. But the point is, I really thought that the way St. John's played against UConn, 2 of the 3 games, the way the run that they were on. Remember, going into that game against Duke, St. John's had played 200 postseason minutes. Yep. The 3 games in the Big East, Providence, Seton Hall, UConn, Northern Iowa, Kansas. They led for 196 minutes and 25 seconds. Of the 200 minutes that they played. So I'm not saying that I went into that game expecting to beat Duke. I did think that they would win. I said that on the show. I was wrong. I'll take the L there. I did say that I thought the point spread was disrespect. Not that I would ever gamble on St. John's. I do the games, but I know some of you do. I thought it was disrespectful. St. John's did cover. I was surprised it opened at 6.5. I didn't think that was a real accurate reflection of what was going to happen. And listen, the one thing I got to say, and I'm not one of these guys who I don't hate Duke. Like, I understand why a lot of people have resentment for Duke over the years. Like, the country club atmosphere, Leitner with the floppy hair looking like a J. Crew model, JJ Redick, Grayson Allen, like that. It's almost like, not almost like, there is a perception that many of the great Duke players are spoiled white kids who have been handed everything, which I think is so patently offensive and so freaking unfair. Yeah, okay, I know. So Christian Leitner,
they have Con Knippel.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's an absolute joke, though, like the way Duke has been perceived. And listen, a lot of it is that it's a great academic school, and it's incredibly expensive, and it is the 1%. And I get all that. Like, I relate much more to an inner city school like St. John's and I do Duke. Number one, Duke. I mean, if I ever sent my high school resume, number one, as a baseball player or as a student, Duke, they wouldn't even get to the point of laughing at me. Like, it wouldn't even go that far. Whatever steps before that, that's what would have happened if I applied to Duke. Now, my sister actually got in. Or no, she didn't apply. She would have. But like me, no, they don't want me at Duke, and that's fine. And I don't really want Duke. But I do think that a lot of the way that they are perceived and the way that they are knocked around by many, it's really unfair because those guys are killers. I mean, those players that Christian Leitner is one of the best all-time college players of all time. Bobby Hurley might be the best point guard in the history of college basketball. I mean, it just go on. And Redick very well might be the best shooter, Steph Curry and some others, in the history of college basketball. But it is what it is. And they move on and to past St. John's, and then they lose to UConn. And I was in a very rough spot there because while I don't project that energy toward Duke like many do, I don't have a visceral reaction to Duke. I don't, and I can't fake it, and I won't fake it. So I'm sitting there saying, and my son even says, like, "Who are you rooting for?" I'm like, "Who the hell am I rooting for?" Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Tough spot.
Like, Jared, one thing, and some people do this. I have never done this. Like, once my team gets knocked out, I will watch because, I love sports, but I'll never, unless it's just a good storyline that I can get behind and root for, I will never sit there and say, well, well, this team knocked me out. Therefore, I want this team to win the championship because then it would further validate my team. Like when a team knocks out the Yankees, I'm not sitting there saying, I hope this team wins the World Series because then it makes the Yankees look better. Once the Yankees season's a wrap, it's a wrap. Once St. John's season's a wrap, it's a wrap. Once not that they ever get to the playoffs, but like when they get knocked out, the few times they go, it's a wrap. I'll just watch the rest of the games as a football fan. But last night was unique because that UConn St. John's energy is palpable. It really is. It is a real rivalry, man. Rick and Hurley, you know, they respect each other, but God, in terms of the sporting sense, they detest each other because they want to rip each other's hearts out because that's how fiercely they compete against each other.
Yeah.
And that guy's, you know, Rick is in his way and Hurley's in his way. And when you have that, like that's how you have a rivalry. So many rivalries, I know I'm branching out now, but so many rivalries in sports are contrived. You know, you do a little video montage. Rivalries, let me tell you how rivalries start. A rivalry begins when you are in my way and I'm trying to get from point X to point Y, right? And I can't get there because you keep sending me home. And then now the team that keeps sending you home, you're less of a rival because they own you. Like for all those years, like, all right, Yankees, Red Sox was a rival from I'm saying from my seat, for the Yankees fan seat, but it wasn't really it was a very one side. It was a rivalry that I loved because you always won. And then, of course, the massive collapse happened. Yankees fall apart, 2004. Red Sox win a couple of championships. And in the last 25 years, the Red Sox have been a better franchise than the Yankees. Now, they've been a little lean the last couple, but now that's more of a rivalry that I can invest real non-contrived energy toward because now I want to jump back past them because now they're in front of me, theoretically. So when he asked me, who do you want to win? I'm like, oh man, I do love having representation for the Big East. You know, the ACC bothers me because so many former Big East teams jump there for the football paycheck. I don't hate Duke. I don't despise Duke, but I have been jealous of Duke over the years. Honestly, and St. John's fans might have an issue with me saying this, I'm happy that UConn won. I really am because it validated so many things that were said about certainly St. John's being a 5 seed, which was unfair. And I'm not going to reset that. You play who you play. But the one thing that I will say, if St. John's wasn't a 5 seed, they're not playing the number 1 seed with a right to go to the Elite Eight. So all that residual downstream, repercussion that happened because the idiots who run the NCAA, those dopes who have no idea what they're doing with the NCAA committee on Sunday when they seed everybody and send them wherever they send them and do what they do, in a lot of ways, that really probably prevented St. John's from playing more. Having said all, Jay, let me get on the screen. Having said all that, right? Having said all that, St. John, and I said this to Mink, if you told me that St. John's would have hit 13 3-point shots, they're not a good shooting team, right? They're a little streaky, but nobody would say they're a good shooting team, either from threes, mid-range twos, or from the foul line. And the numbers bear that out. But if you told me they would have shot over 40% from downtown, and it's not like, I don't mean like, 2 for 5, but when you hit 13 threes and you're 41 or 42%, and you only turn the basketball over 6 times, which is what they did. If you told me that walking to the arena, I would have said St. John's is playing on Sunday for the Elite Eight, and there would not have been a doubt in my mind. Because number one, I thought St. John's was going to do a better job on the backboard. St. John's got destroyed. I think they were minus 13 or minus 14. St. John's was abused on the backboard. Duke just owned them. Fact. You got to own that. They got pummeled on the backboard. Now, here's the other thing, right? That last play, would you like to see Darling kick it back to Zuby? Sure. Last gasp effort. All right, I got it. There was a situation, and Rick lit him up, where Oziah Sellers could have fouled one of Duke's bigs who's a bad free throw shooter. He didn't do it. That would have maybe extended the game. But really, as much as St. John's lost because of Cam Boozer, who I got to tell you, in person, he is even bigger than I thought. Bryce Hopkins is a well-put-together man. He's a young man, but he's a man. He's been around college. This is year 5 with the red shirt, all that stuff. He's 22 years old. He's going to be 23. Bryce Hopkins is put together. And when they were standing next to each other, I could not believe the disparity in size between Cam Boozer and Bryce Hopkins. Same with Zuby. It was really amazing. And the referees allowed this. And here's the one thing that does bother me about Duke. And it's not even Duke's fault. It's the referee's fault. Now, I'm not squawking about this, but it is a point of contention that needs to be raised here. They continue, and Rick said this after the game, what they've done is they've really kind of they've refed out, if you will, the charge in college basketball, because there were multiple times where Cam Boozer went flying into a St. John's defender, initiating contact either with an arm. That's an offensive foul. You cannot do that. They never called it once. Now, again, Duke is really good. This is not like a Duke team from back in the day. It's just not, because they're very young, and Caden Boozer's okay. But St. John's lost because, number one, they could not stop Evans. Evans crushed them. Evans is really, I think, the reason why St. John's lost. Obviously, Caleb Foster coming back. Shout out to this young man. He gets hurt, breaks a bone in his foot, in his leg on March 7th, and he comes out and he played, and he had 11 points, and he gave them real meaningful minutes. That's a warrior right there. So even though I wanted St. John's to win, you've got to respect that. But here's the issue. 24-8 free throw advantage in terms of attempts favoring Duke. That's just ridiculous. That's a gripe that I believe is real. And so much of that was because of Coach K. When you have a Coach K, when you have a Dean Smith, when you have a Roy Williams, usually when you have a Rick Pitino, when you have a Jimmy Calhoun, usually when you have a Danny Hurley, though the reps can't stand Danny, whatever. When you have a Boeheim, when you have a coach like that with that kind of equity, right? Roley back in the day, Louis back in the day, right? And, you are Tom Izzo, when you're constantly in a position of winning a lot of games and going far, you generally just get the whistle, because even though the refs are human and they have no bias, like, I don't believe that referees go into games saying, okay, Tom Izzo's a legend, or, Jim Calhoun's a legend, I'm going to favorably give him the whistle. That's not how it works. They don't, unless, you Donaghy and you cheating, back in the day, but you go to jail for that, if you're doing what he did. But I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that there's this, preemptive or forethought of, if you will, from a referee's point of view to overtly favor Duke. That's not what happens. But, residually, all these decades of Duke dominance, it plays into the deepest recesses of your mind. And, these refs have been around for a long time. So they were there when Coach K was there for 35 years, or 40 years, whatever it was. And there's just a little more favorable whistle. There just is. I did not think they officiated a good game. I'm sorry. Now, listen, St. John's, did they deserve to lose? I mean, the things that you can control, like, you can't always control the ball going in the hole. You can control how you box out. And there were too many times, and this happened even against Kansas, and they got lucky. And it even happened against Northern Iowa, but it didn't matter because they blew them out. St. John's gave up too many weak side tip-ins where they just didn't seal out. They didn't box out. I don't want to, start throwing coach speak at you here, but St. John's did not box out well enough to win the game. So that's the thing that they can control, because that's an element of physicality, and they are a very physical team. So I'm surprised they got thumped on the backboards by 13 the way they did. But 24-8, like Zuby, who's a physical player, Dylan Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, these are physical players. You get 8 free throw attempts, that's a joke. But, you got to take it on the chin. You got to take it like a man. It's crazy. They shot 41% from behind the arc. They hit 13 threes. They turned it over 6 times, and they lost the game. So just a real gut-wrenching finish, an awesome season. St. John's fans, you guys are awesome. Thrilled, and again, I knew about this before it hit the news, but thrilled that Rick Pitino, they tacked on the extra year. He's now, as he should be, the second highest paid coach in the Big East. There's a big jump in money. I believe, and he said this, as long as he's healthy, he would love to now pursue 1,000 wins. And then that would allow, St. John's now for this new culture to root even deeper, because that's what it's all about. Like, it can't just be, all right, Rick's here for 4 years and, they get to 1 Elite 8, 1 Sweet 16, and then Rick goes away and St. John's goes back to being a 17-15 program, playing, no disrespect, Wagner's and Maryland Eastern Shore and teams that you're going to thump by 50 points, that you're paying money to come to Carteseca to beat. That's not the way it's going to go down. Rapoldi's not going to let it. Eddie Cole's not going to let it. And St. John's is Father Shanley, who is at Providence, who believes and knows the power of basketball. Father Shanley's not going to let it happen. So this is clearly a new day for St. John's, and it's awesome. Everything about it is awesome. But in some ways, would it have been easier if Duke jumps on them 23-7? And it's one of those nights where nothing's dropping, like UConn at one point was 2 for 18 from behind the arc yesterday. Then I think they hit 4 or 5 in a row. Like if St. John's would have shot 2 for 18 and they lost, by 13, 14, it's easier to walk away saying, all right, their Achilles heel was shooting. Rick knows what he's got to do in the portal this year. They got to get some more shooters, which they absolutely have to do. And really, guys, if you want the most honest assessment of what killed St. John's this year, is that their guards just weren't good enough, period. Their guards didn't shoot consistently enough. I thought too many times, Sellers just doesn't get to the rim enough. Sadden he's very awkward everybody tells me, listen, I've always got St. John's back, but I got to say one thing about Sadden here. Everybody tells me how great a player he's going to be. I don't see it. I see somebody who's got a young man, all right, who's got an incredibly loose handle, a young man whose, calling card is shooting, who is woefully inconsistent shooting the ball, and a young man who, when he drives to the basket, just really has no clear vision of what he's going to do. Like, I can't tell you how many times I saw like these awkward double pumps or the ball got stripped. If he sticks around, and I think he will, I'm very curious to see what another year of player development does for him. But I don't see it the way some of you see it. And the other thing, and I love him. I have incredible respect for him. I don't know how Ruben Prey doesn't get back in that basketball game. I just don't know. I don't understand it. It's one of those things that I will never know. And
exactly.
I was stunned.
Sorry for jumping in.
Jump. Okay, go.
Dude, hit the 3-pointer with the block right before halftime, and you don't put him. Ridiculous.
I was stunned by that. Yeah. Now, listen, if it was somebody like Leftopoulos or, maybe somebody else who didn't really play a whole lot this year, and they just had a little bit of a moment, but you worry about them defensively. All right, I could see that. There is such a thing as getting, unexpected, like statistical overachievement. And you're like, all right, eventually the odds, this thing's going to even out a little bit here. And listen, I don't think that Ruben Prey's going 6 for 6 from downtown, but he's one of the better defenders on the team. He's not Dylan Mitchell, but he's such a versatile defender given his length, and he can step out. He can guard the one. He's very good on the switch. He's very good recovering. If he's up top and he's got to recover down low because he's a good athlete, he's got long strides. I was absolutely stunned and incredibly disappointed that Ruben Prey didn't get a couple of more minutes. Really, I don't understand that. And listen, I said at the start of this, it's not my job. I'll talk to him at some point about it. It's not my job to go in there when you get knocked out of the Sweet 16 in the manner in which they got knocked out and ask Rick Pitino why Ruben Prey didn't get in that game after that 4-3. And that's the job of people who cover the team. And I was very surprised. To my knowledge, nobody asked him. And I was very surprised about that. Like, that's something that's got to be asked with all due respect. And it wasn't. But, I mean, even if it was, it wouldn't have changed I don't think that there's a satisfactory answer there. Ruben Prey should have been given 2 or 3 more minutes to see if this is one of those magical all-time nights that unexpectedly would have continued. He stuck 4 threes. He didn't miss one. And there was one sequence that was right in front of me, too, where there was a loose ball, and he dove. And I actually described it like somebody charging from first base on a gapper, diving headfirst into home plate, and kind of like Lindor. If Lindor would have gone head first, I'm going to get to that as well. Talk a little baseball here, but it was such an energized play, and man, I'm surprised he didn't get. I'm surprised he didn't get back in that game. But again, this is the tough part about being a fan for whoever you root for. Hey, you could be a massive Huskies fan. Now you've got some championships and a lot of Final Four equity, so maybe the hurt will be a little bit less for you. Like St. John's fans, they haven't been to the Final Four since '85. So when you're up by 10 points and you think, all right, we're going to the Elite Eight and we already beat UConn, and hey, why can't we beat Michigan State? Like, when the mind begins to wander, that's when the pain really hits next level. But it was a phenomenal season, and the rebirth of St. John's is palpable. Monetarily, nobody's going to commit more money than Mike Rapoli. He's just not. They just started building a $50 million building. They just started construction. Basketball only for the men's, and I believe women, sure, but men's and women's basketball team. That's going to be incredible. So, it's funny. For a while, it used to be about facilities, right? And obviously, who's coaching me, what conference we're in, who, you're going to get me to the NBA, all that stuff, sure. But for about, 25, 30 years, it was like, all right, what are the facilities? There was like an arms race, same in college football for facilities, right? I've gone, sometimes I'll wander on YouTube because I especially with baseball, you don't see it that much. I'll just do a random YouTube search. I know UConn, ironically, just put out like a couple of years ago, like a $30 million baseball facility. And I could get lost in that for an hour or so, down a bunch of rabbit holes. So baseball's doing it. And now obviously basketball and football has always been doing it. So it's less about the arms race and it's all about the NIL. And, the guy that's coaching you, is he going to give me my best chance to make the NBA and get generational wealth and change my entire family's future, right? And Rick Pitino obviously is that guy. St. John's obviously is incredibly competitive in the NIL space. And now, and it's going to open in 2027, now they're going to have the accommodations that basketball players do look for. It doesn't usurp the NIL, but now they got all three. And they've got an AD and a president, Father Shanley, and a head coach that they're all lined. So, all those years, I just, I would have loved to call. It's going to sound weird. I would have loved to have called an Elite Eight. I would have loved to have gone on a plane and gone out to Indy. I've been to Indy 3 times for the Final Four, a couple times with Tiki, all those years doing the national stuff. So I've been to a lot of Final Four, 3 in Indianapolis. I think I've been to about 7 or 8. But I would have loved that for me again, clearly. But I really wanted it for the St. John's fans. So, it's been an awesome season. And I said this on social media as well, but it's been an honor being able to, be a small, very small piece of the puzzle, a liaison from the program, to bring you some content and stuff. But they did lose and season's over and you got to keep moving here. So we get the Final Four and you get the Final Four. I'll keep that up there. Hang on. You get the Final Four. You get the 3 seed Illinois. Illinois is favored, by the way, -1.5. That's small, but who knows where the money goes. But initial line, the Fighting Illini -1.5. UConn, the 2 seed. Illinois, the 3 seed. That's the first game. And then Michigan. Michigan, Arizona should be the championship game. Like, I think whoever wins that game, I'm not going to say that UConn would get blown out. Got too much respect for Hurley. And Illinois is very worthy. But whoever wins that Michigan-Arizona game is going to be the champion. That too is a 1.5 point spread. Michigan laying the 1.5, 1 seed Michigan, 1 seed Arizona. So there you go. Duke 80, St. John's 75, Sweet 16 run. So you get to add a little something else to the banner, and it was a great year. But the Ruben Prey thing was baffling, and really St. John's needs to get more shooters, and they know that. All right, what does that say there? Man, it's crazy. It just ends so abruptly. It ends. All right, Carlos Boozer is the Taylor Swift of Duke. We did see him a lot. Now, I don't see him in real time. I'm doing the games, but I see all the stuff on social, and he was like waving people goodbye. Now, listen, I don't know what people were saying to him. If it was anything like rude, then him waving like below board, him waving goodbye, yeah, it would have been entitled to say a lot more. But that was a little corny. Like, just watch the game, man. Obviously, root for your sons, of course. Root for Duke. You're a Duke man. But like waving goodbye, like if St. John's fans weren't up in your grill, and I don't think that they were, then that was a little bit below board, I thought. By the way, he was a better than average NBA player. Carlos Boozer was pretty good. He was an above average NBA player, not a superstar, but a couple of years, Carlos Boozer was a star in the NBA. Hell of a player. And Cam is going to be ridiculous. But they let him get away with the bully ball, and it was obvious that the whistle wasn't going St. John's way. And really, I think of all the foul calls, even the non-calls where they didn't get Boozer for the push-off or the initiating the contact, I thought number 2, the second foul on Bryce Hopkins, was by far the most egregious call of the night. That absolutely changed the complexion of this game. Because Bryce Hopkins went to the bench with 7 minutes to go in the first half there. And, I remember Mink just doing his job. He's like, you have to wonder if we'll see Bryce Hopkins the rest of the half. I'm like, there's no way we're going to see him. And we didn't. And you shouldn't. Like, that's the right move by Pitino. There's no way, especially the way it was being officiated with a phantom call for number 2. You're going to run the risk in a tight game of throwing Hopkins out there and getting his 3rd foul before halftime? You only get 5 in college. You don't get 6. No way. 100% right move by Rick there. And I knew we weren't going to see him until the second half. So, and that's when Ruben Prey started doing his thing. And Dylan Mitchell even hit a 3. But to me, that was the one. Even though there were other moments for sure that you could cherry pick and say, bad call, or you got to hit that layup, or bad job boxing out by St. John's, or Sellers had this open look from the corner. How do you not stick it? Whatever it might be. Not the optimal shot at the end with Darling from about 37 feet. There's a lot of things. You never really lose on one play. I do believe that, because there's just so many things that happened before that. But that second foul on Hopkins, that was a killer. Absolute killer. All right. Oh, my God. Jeez. Oh, what are we going to do here, J-Rod? What are we going to do, buddy?
Man.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do? All right. What you got a couple of questions there? What do we got?
Yeah, here's just a super
What do you got?
chat for you.
All right, Ty. What up there, Ty? How you doing, buddy? Ty, what's up, BT? Apologies if this is a known sentiment. Just came across you, but is this just a New York show? No, it's not. As I see the Angels logo, thank you for that. Appreciate it, Ty. Thank you. Shout out to Ty Jenks 85. Good stuff. No, by the way, Mike Trout looking pretty good so far. I love it. No, this is not just a New York show. This is a show. And I said this a few times. I'll reset it very briefly. Then I'll get to 3 burning questions. We'll do some baseball stuff. Knicks and OKC. Now, like pertaining to, say, the NFL draft, I'll probably always start Jets and Giants. But, unless there's just a massive trade that doesn't involve either. Like, that'll be my first take. NFL draft, national. NBA, national. A little initial slant toward the Knicks, clearly, but national. Anything with the golf, obviously, I'm going to talk a lot of golf when I can. Tiger Woods, what are you doing? Tiger Woods, what are you doing, Tiger? It is so clear. I know that he's already checked himself into rehab, and Tiger Woods has had about, I think, 11 surgeries, multiple surgeries on his back, which is not fun. I had that. He had even more invasive procedures on his back. I just had the one that's called the microdiscectomy, which is really not that invasive, but it's still back surgery. He had a bunch, all right? Bunch on his knees, bunches on several on his Achilles. Like, he is just like when he crashed and flipped his car a few years ago and almost died, like his knee was shattered. I mean, that man physically has been put through the meat grinder, some his own doing, others not. But Tiger Woods, forget about, is he ever going to come back and try to play Augusta? Can he ever win again, on the PGA Tour? I know he was entered for an over 50 event on the Seniors Tour. Doesn't matter. Tiger Woods needs to get control of his life, because he's going to kill somebody, God forbid. If he doesn't kill himself, God forbid, he's going to ruin somebody else's family and their life. And these mugshots are worrisome. Just like the puffy eyes.
Yeah, dude. It doesn't even look like it. It looks like, obviously not to the same level, but like when you look at like the pics of like Delonte West post NBA, obviously not to that level. No. But to a level of, dang, like this guy looks unrecognizable facially from himself as like when he was a star, like how you remember him, how you want to remember him.
Well said. And it's nuts too, because physically, even with the surgeries, he looks like a 2-guard, like a retired NBA 2-guard. Like, he is absolutely yoked. But facially, the puffy eye, it just doesn't look like he sleeps a lot. And he's even said he'll sleep like 3 or 4 hours and then just get up and start grinding at the gym still at like 4 a.m. And I want to stay in my lane here. I know he blew a 0.0, so it wasn't alcohol, but driving at high rates of speed and losing control and flipping cars over and over. Like, I would think, I want to protect myself. I would think, it's my guess, that he is, either reliant on stuff that he can't get control of, and he needs to. He was already in rehab once.
Yeah.
So I hope he figures this out. If not for himself, for other people. If he doesn't have the common decency to go and attack this head on and finally fix this, whatever he's relying on to get through life, he's got to do it for the rest of society, because he is now becoming a detriment to those on the road where he lives and when he's behind the wheel of a car. Sad. Thankfully, he didn't kill somebody. Thankfully, he didn't kill himself. But he's got to wake up. Like, enough of the nonsense, Tiger. Let's get control of yourself here, buddy. Come on. All right. It is a Monday, which means you know what time it is, J-Rod. A little burning questions time. And it's going to be Major League Baseball as we jump around here. So Ty just asked me, is this just a New York show? Well, as based on you'll hear from the burning questions, the answer is no. And, of course, burning questions brought to you by Sullivan & Payne, one of New York's best personal injury law firms, according to U.S. News and World Report. As general counsel to the New York City Firefighters Union for more than 4 decades and the proud law firm partner of St. John's Athletics, Sullivan & Payne is New York's team, fighting for New Yorkers for more than 100 years. You can find Sullivan Papain online at triallaw1.com, triallaw1.com. Remember the name, Sullivan Papain. All right, first up, question number one. What was the biggest surprise of the opening weekend of Major League Baseball? Well, I'll tell you, and I went through, the things that I just, saw and the things that I knew top of mind, but also literally went through every game this weekend, going back to even, Thursday, Friday, what happened over the weekend. To me, the biggest surprise of the opening weekend of Major League Baseball season actually occurred within the first 30 minutes of the Mets-Pirates game. Paul Skeens doesn't get out of the first inning. Are you kidding me? That's a stunner. I mean, if you told me the Mets tagged him for 5 runs over, 4 innings, and he walked a couple of guys, didn't have pinpoint control, that alone would have been a stunner. 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits, 5 runs, all earned, 2 walks. What? This is a guy who had a 1.97 ERA in 2025 with a sub-1 ERA, with a WAR of 7.6, with 216 strikeouts in less than 190 innings. And by the way, last year, this is a wild stat, all the years of baseball, going back to the dead ball era, multiple turns of the century, right? Because obviously multiple centuries have been involved here. The first pitcher ever in the history of baseball that's the National and the American League here, to have 175 strikeouts with a sub-2 ERA in his first 25 starts as a major leaguer. So what was the biggest surprise of the opening weekend of the season? It's Paul Skeens hitting the shower basically 17 minutes after he left the bullpen. What? All right, number two. I love this. And I'm like, how's this going to be when it comes? Well, how has ABS impacted baseball so far? I got to tell you, I think it's impacted baseball pretty favorably. Number one, I think they're getting stuff right. Now, I think it's been great. I do think there's going to be a time where, unless it's like a massive moment, where, like the 3rd inning, some innocuous challenge, the Rockies against the Padres, the Braves against the Marlins. Yeah, you're not going to have 35,000 start cheering, and you have seen that because it's new. And it's, anytime there's something new, people are digging it. But I think it's been really good so far. I think it's created some more interest, number one. I think the crowd enjoys it so far, as I said. Now, let me give you some math here real quick, all right? Oh, the other thing, too, is that they process it very quickly. All right, tap the helmet. Here's the challenge. Nope, ball, reverse. Nope, sticking, good. Boom, play ball. So it's not like an impediment to the flow of the game, which obviously matters. You've had 175 challenges so far, all right? 54% have been overturned. Oh, your boy's doing some digging here. I love the stats here, J-Rod, right? 175 total challenges. A little bit more than 50% have been overturned. 94% of the attempted challenges, of not attempted, of all the challenges, 94 were 94 were overturned, 81 were confirmed, and a little deeper, dig here into the numbers. Of the 54% that were overturned, 78 attempts were of the batters, and 97 were by either the catcher or the pitcher. So those are some of the numbers. And if you wanted an even deeper dive, which nobody probably cares about yet, but I'll give it to you anyway, the Reds, they appear to be the best ABS team in baseball. They are 6-0 in the ABS challenges, whereas the Braves, 0-4. They have yet to get a favorable, positive ABS overturn. All right, number 3. Which 3-0 team is a mirage? Very simple. Well, to find out which 3-0 team that I think is a mirage, let me first let you know how many 3-0 teams there are. There are 5. The Yankees look good. Yankees pitching, listen, I'll talk about them in a minute a little bit more, but I told you I love the Yankees pitching, and I know it's early, and I don't think the Giants are very good at all. I think these 3 games with the Seattle series going to be tough. Seattle pitches. They were almost in the World Series a year ago. They're good. They're a good team. Very good. So I don't think the Yankees sweep Seattle. Who knows how that goes, but the Yankees are throwing the heck out of the baseball. Yankees are 3-0. Toronto, obviously very good. They're 3-0. The Brewers are 3-0, as are the Dodgers and the Marlins. So let me get this straight. Which 3-0 teams playing above their head? Which team's a mirage? The Yankees? No. Yankees will be a playoff team. Toronto? No. Toronto will be a playoff team. Brewers? No. They'll be a playoff team. Dodgers will win 130 games maybe. They'll obviously be a playoff team and have the best record in baseball. So the answer is obviously the Marlins, but I'm not just trying to dump on the Marlins. The Marlins were pretty competitive a year ago. Now, they were almost 500. They finished up 79 and 83. They've got some young players. Now, the reason why first of all, like if there were other teams that were 3-0 that I didn't think were really viable, because you see this, it's baseball, it's random. It's not like the NFL where you get some like the Jets or the Browns starting 3-0. Those teams always start out 0-3 or 1-4 because they stink. Baseball's different, right? As we know. Here's the reason. Number one, the Marlins aren't quite ready yet to swim in the deep waters, and that's not being disrespectful. It's calling for what it is. But think about who they beat. They beat the decrepit Rockies. The Rockies are just atrocious. And they beat them by 1 run every game. The first game, they beat them 2-1. Then they beat them 4-3. Then they beat them 4-3. So when you're 3-0 and you have a +3 run differential, there's an element of maybe luck is a little strong, but how about circumstances that apply there? And then obviously the Marlins are not yet ready to, as I said, swim with the big dogs here, or the Sharks. So I would have to say that the answer would be the Marlins. All right, there it is. 3 burning questions every week, every Monday here on BT Unleashed, brought to you by my friends, the great people at Sullivan Papane. Find Sullivan online at triallaw1.com. That's triallaw1.com. Remember the name, Sullivan Papane. Yeah, listen, the baseball stuff's amazing. Now, can I tell you, too, I think the Mets pitching staff is going to be really good. I said that coming into the year. I like the Mets to win, low 90s. Mets will be a playoff team. And I do like this new look to the Mets lineup. Now, Bo Bichette's having a rough start. His throws across the diamond, a little iffy, whatever. Hopefully he figures that out. One thing that I could promise you is that Bo Bichette's going to hit. I wouldn't worry about Bo Bichette striking out. I think it's 7 whiffs and 11 at-bats. But, see, this is a guy who, number one, is incredibly clutch. And when you're clutch and, you have, whether it's OPS or batting average, after the 7th inning, high leverage situations, whatever it might be, all the statistical columns that Bo Bichette checks from a clutch point of view, which he obviously does. And Met fans know that. Toronto fans know that. And, just dyed-in-the-wool baseball fans know that if you follow the stats here. If you can do that in pressurized situations, I can promise you that Bo Bichette's going to have no problem eventually figuring things out with the New York Mets. I could take that one to the bank. And even more evidence, I didn't think his answer was good because he was booed yesterday and getting on him a little bit. And it's kind of a rite of passage. I'll get back to that in a minute. But he was booed, and it was, there's boos that are barely audible, and then there are those boos that are a little bit more vociferous. And that was a little bit more of the vociferous variety. That's going to dissipate fast. Met fans are going to love this cat. Absolutely love Bo Bichette. I love him. I love him as a ball player, right? But his answer tells me he gets it. He gets it. He was asked, hey, Bo, what'd you think about the booing there for the Met fans? And he said something along the lines of, yeah, I'd boo louder, or I would bring more, or I deserve more. Something like that. Totally disarms it. No story to write. Let's keep it moving. Imagine it. Now, I haven't listened to the station, to any of the radio today locally, but imagine if Bo Bichette would have said something along the lines of, "Wow, I didn't expect this. A couple of games into the season, and they're already jumping on me. Wow, I didn't hear that in Toronto." That would be the entire story all day on the stations, and rightfully so. Because he would have added some fuel to the fire. Now, takes all the oxygen out of it, snuffs out the fire, keep it about baseball, hell of a ball player, slow heartbeat, going to be awesome. Now, the play with Lindor, all right, getting thrown out at the plate on Soto's double to left center. When Polanco hit that for the final out, I didn't think he got it. I could see why, obviously you jump out of your seat like, did he get it? I was watching that live. I didn't think he got it. Right, perfect barrel and to the warning track in right field. I don't know what the wind was doing. I know it was windy more so the day before. Yes, it was pretty nice. But I do like this Mets lineup. I really do. Benj going yard his first game was a great moment. You could see Soto and Benj, Soto's taking him under his wing. I like Beatty. I like Polanco. I thought Luis Robert obviously had the walk-off home run, and we know he can field and all that stuff. But I thought he had a really good at-bat. It was earlier in the game on Saturday where, I forget, was it Soto? It may have been Soto. Was it Soto? Not Juan Soto. Soto for the Pirates pitcher. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a lefty. It was a righty. And he kept throwing him some sliders outside. And he grounded out to first, right? It was like a check swing, but he got the runner over. If I remember that, I believe there was a man on second. But the at-bat and the quality of the at-bat, and he kind of did that on opening day as well. And it's early, so I'm not going to overreact to anything from a baseball point of view. But, maybe a new locked-in Luis Robert, obviously being in the same lineup as Soto, being around Soto day-to-day and his keen eye at the plate certainly can't hurt you. I do think the Mets are going to be a lot of fun to watch this year, and I have no problem with the play at the plate. You could look at it two ways. Obviously, he was out. They got it right. Otherwise, you could have reviewed it. Now, I don't know. It would have been interesting if, because the throw wasn't. It was almost like the catcher kind of caught it, and he was almost like in foul territory going towards the third base dugout. Not that far back, but just a little. So he had to kind of come back to the plate. I don't know if Lindor goes head first there and just tries to swipe the outer part of the plate with his right hand. If he's safe, I don't know. I also know, based on the surgery, you don't really need Francisco Lindor in March going head first and maybe colliding into a catcher's shin guard and then, having that thing act up and flare up and be worse and be an issue maybe for the rest of the year. So what? He ran into an out at the plate. Would have been nice. I thought he got a pretty good jump. He said that he didn't take the best route. They've got analytics and StatCast for that, but I didn't see it. But, I appreciate his honesty. And if he said he kind of rounded a bag a little bit too wide, which leads to an extra step or two, he's a very good base runner, so I'll believe him. But I had no issue with the send. And I know a lot of Met fans did, but the reason why I didn't is because the Mets, and this was, I like the transparency by Mendoza here. The Mets remained married to what they said going into this series. They identified, remember when the Dodgers took a shit all over the Yankees defense? Remember that? After the World Series? Well, I mean, the Mets didn't blatantly diss the Pirates going into the series, but what they did say after the series when Mendoza was asked about it, he said, the Pirates were a team that we identified that we would be able to, be a little aggressive on and put the onus on them defensively, put some stress on them. That was a good play. It was a great play by the shortstop as well because he had a short hop that. I actually thought, when I look back, I was just geeking out as a baseball guy, but I thought that the outfielder kind of took an extra step. The left fielder, got it off the wall. Soto bangs it in there. Obviously, the first run scorer, I think that was Alvarez. And when he actually retrieves the ball, you can see, I don't know if it was a pump fake or an extra step, the left fielder. So that's a half a tick. That's favorable to the Mets there. And then the throw was low, and the shortstop short hopped it, and then he threw a throw that wasn't great to the catcher, as I just detailed before. A little bit of foul ground. Again, maybe an opening if you go head first, but you don't need that from Lindor. But I like that because, again, when you identify a weakness of a team, I'm going to put the onus on you to show that you're better than we think that you are. And I like that. That showed that the Mets are connected. They talked about this going into the series, and the players knew it from a base running perspective. I'm sure that Lindor wasn't shocked when he got the wave, when he got the arm at third base. Third base coach obviously knew what the deal was. Everybody's arm strength. Everybody's positioning. all that stuff. So, I think that's just a good baseball play that happens sometimes. And, when you have it, I personally, I don't think there's enough relays in baseball. I think it's one of the most exciting things in baseball. I really do. I think it's fun. When you have a gapper, somebody goes for three, you got to cut it off. And, whether it's a shortstop or a second baseman going out, or try to cut somebody down at the plate, like that's awesome. Like that is where baseball goes from very methodical, very slow to incredibly explosive instantaneously, really. And that's why baseball, when kids say, and I get it, I've already seen some kids, not really, a couple kids already beginning to transition away from baseball, kids that I know and kids that I coach, and getting into lacrosse, and those kids generally play football as well. Some of them play basketball. Like, I think one of the things that dissuades kids from playing baseball, young kids, is that number one, it's very hard, and it's hard to hit. And I think, first of all, there's a small percentage of kids, and I get it, who are just inherently afraid of the baseball. And when you stand in the batter's box, when you're 6, 7 years old, some kids even 8, and if that front foot is bailing, you're never going to be a hitter. Like, if you can't stand in there and understand that you're going to get hit once in a while, you're never going to be a good hitter. You're never going to command the strike zone. You're just never going to place any fear in the opposing pitcher, right? So that's one aspect of it. But also, the game is slower and not a ton of contact unless there's like a boom, boom, taking somebody out at second base, whatever. Even that's been policed out of the game. Collisions at the plate, policed out of the game. So younger kids who enjoy contact and higher energy, they might find baseball boring. And I remember doing a show on this when I first launched the station or the channel here. If you guys want to go and find it, do's and don'ts. I'll give you some youth content as well. Not now, but just to circle back to something like do's and don'ts about youth baseball. And I said, one of the mistakes, this is just a little minute, whatever. I think you'll enjoy this. But I think one of the things that happens with young baseball players is that, they're like so many parents are fixated on having their kids be good hitters right away, which obviously matters. I mean, everybody wants to sit in the stands and watch their kids get 3 hits, a game when they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then if you play high level comp, those 3 hits start to dwindle because it's just hard. But the point is that too many people ignore defense, too many. And I think what happens is a lot of those kids where there's no real emphasis on catching the ball, throwing the ball. Usually you go out on, you 7-year-old kid, you got one, all right, who can catch the ball? If by a miracle somebody catches a ground ball and throws a miracle decent throw to first base, who's going to be the kid at first base who even catches the ball to get an out? Like, there's not many kids who can make those plays. So I say that because those kids who are in the infield when they're young, many of them will eventually, move to the outfield as they become, deeper and deeper entrenched in the game. If they play, high level, club, high school, college, beyond. But a lot of the players who can't do anything defensively because they didn't really practice, it's not their fault. They never developed those skills. They sit in the outfield. And especially in the Northeast, it's 39 degrees. You're not getting any balls out there when you're 7, 8 years old. It's freezing. You don't really want the ball hit to you because you're not really confident. And then those players, that's the point. Those players generally move on to other fast-paced sports. But like I've always said, baseball is just like a lull. It's kind of very slow, and then bang, there's just a very quick, explosive series of events. And that's why I love the relay. That's why I'm always a proponent. Yeah, I mean, like, unless you're down, and they were, but unless like you're down a run or you have Aaron Judge coming up or you have Juan Soto coming up and you're like, all right, let's nobody out. Let's not run into an out here foolishly. I could see why some people would push back on that because the Mets were in a position to set up to win the game. I get that. But if that's going to be the Mets mentality this year, if that's going to be their mantra, which was clearly communicated to the team in the meetings before they started the series with the Pirates, I love it because that's going to play over the course of 162. It really is. So no issue with that myself. Jay, did you watch a lot of baseball or no? Did you watch some baseball this weekend?
Come on now. Of course, I got to lock in. Listen, as you can see from my stats reading game, I got to lock in desperately. So, yeah, I watched that Mets game. Great game. And I feel like from that, I ascertained a lot. I gained a lot from that game, learned a lot of the ins and outs, and it was super fun. I mean, the skiing stuff was wild.
Yeah, crazy. I've never
seen... Sorry.
Okay, man.
No, I mean, like, even from a guy who's gaining baseball knowledge, so to speak, I could tell that was a god-awful inning. I mean, holy.
Yeah.
Holy.
That's the kind of thing that sets you up to win a couple of games. It would have been nice to get the sweep from the Mets' point of view because you got number one, the Pirates aren't that good, but you got into their bullpen right away. You stick an L on Skeens because you went 2/3 of an inning. You knew that their bullpen would be a little bit. Then you had extra innings, like 2 days in a row. Yeah, it was a fun weekend out there in Queens. Mets fans were great. I can't wait till the Yankees come back home or come home to start the year. San Francisco's a great ballpark. Giants I just don't like their lineup at all. I think their lineup stinks. Giants are doing nothing this year. That's a 2-team division right there. What else did I want to say? Oh, I wanted to pop this up because this is something I said before. If I missed it, okay. Anthony Botton, 1364. Ant, what's going on? Did you see the video where Rick explained why Prey didn't get back in? He said he blew a few defensive assignments and he didn't know the plays for the 4, so he had to choose between Zuby and him. Well, I mean, I didn't see that. And if you're choosing between Zuby and Ruben Prey, I mean, it's Zuby 1 million out of 1 million times, but who the hell am I to push back on anything with Rick Pitino? The guy's forgotten more basketball than my entire family tree knows combined. Every generation of my family combined, what he's forgotten in one day. exceeds what everybody that's ever existed and walked the earth with DNA of my family tree knows combined. But I do think that even. And I've said this on the show many times. I think Rick is the greatest college basketball coach of all time. He doesn't have the most wins, doesn't have the most championships, doesn't have the most Final Fours. That's Coach K. That's Wooden. I get it. Understood. Adolph Rupp. I know. But in terms of going from, one spot, whether it's BU to Providence to Kentucky, who's a step away of the death penalty, to Louisville to St. John's, which was a dead. The only thing that they didn't do in terms of killing St. John's basketball was that little teeny last pebble of dirt that was still on the shovel as they were getting ready to throw it on the grave. And then obviously, then they would have been dead. There was a pebble and one little grain of dirt. And Rick came and took the shovel and said, no, we're not going to let that happen. So I do think Rick is the greatest for the reasons I've chronicled many times. But you can be the greatest at whatever you do and still make a mistake. And now, is it a mistake or is it a mistake, or is it the wrong choice, or is it a miscalculation? Those are two different things. Yeah. I myself think I just think it was the wrong choice. I didn't hear him talk about the calculus behind, the 4 with Zuby, the 5, and obviously, Hopkins had a couple of fouls early. Yeah, I don't know, but still, I don't know, a St. John's fan that didn't text me, that pretty much was the first thing that they said. Why didn't Ruben Prey get back in the game? Like, there was a point where I actually, because the game's going on and you wrapped up what's in front of you, you're calling the game, and Ruben Prey's not a central figure for this team. He's not Zuby, he's not Hopkins, he's not Dylan Mitchell. He's just not. Dylan Darling the last couple of months has been phenomenal. Sellers, I think, was way too quiet the last month or so, and that was a big problem for St. John's. But the Ruben Prey was a guy, I don't even know how many minutes he averaged. If I had to guess, maybe 13 minutes a game, something like that. So when you have a non-central figure have an all-time moment, and then he goes back to the bench, and St. John still has control of the game as they were up by 10. I think it was 53-43. I think that's what it was with 15:03 to go in the game, right in that neighborhood. I'd be lying if I said, where's Ruben Prey? Like, I would have been saying, where's Zuby? Where's Zuby? Why is Zuby not back? Like, if that was Zuby. Yeah. But I did say at one point, I'm like, well, wow, Ruben hasn't gotten back in since he hit that 4-3 point shot. I was surprised at that. I really was. I was surprised at that. Let's see here. What do we got here? At the Pinstripe Bugle. I've seen them like some of my stuff. I don't know what kind of, how long they've been in the game.
It's good content. He does a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously, I've now recently begun following him as just a result of him, commenting and being a member of the community. But yeah, great stuff. He does like a lot of collabs with other New York pages as well.
Look at you making it all official as a member of the community here, as a member of the YouTube. Very, very well. Well said. I like the verbiage there. I got to learn some of these new buzzwords too.
Hey, thank you.
Collabs, the platforms, the community, and one big family.
Yeah,
right?
Big time.
So what is he saying there? Would I ever collab with a smaller content creator? Make Yankees content. Follow them every day if you ever need somebody to talk Yankees ball. Listen, I am in the space. Here's what I believe. All right, I am a believer in interesting discussions. All right, so I'll give you an example. Like Wednesday, Stephen A is coming on this week. He's the modern Howard Cosell. Like, nobody's got more followers. Nobody makes more money. Nobody's got more of an imprint. Nobody's got, like the legacy of Stephen A. And the shadow, the specter of Stephen A. He's an absolute titan and giant of industry. Period. That's one guy that I'm looking forward to conversing with. Same with Michael K. Same with Donnie from New York, Don LaGreca, New York radio, New York, content point of view. But I don't need somebody with 1 million followers or a couple of 100,000 followers to, have a good segment. So my answer to that, Mr. Pinstripe Bugle, will be yes. I think anything that I find interesting. I've gone on smaller channels. I've gone on the Mets Pod, and that they do a good job there. It's not like they've got 79,000 subs. Like, they're growing and they're hustling, much like I am growing and hustling. We'll hit 20,000 subs. We're knocking on the door. We are right there. A couple of ways. So let's go. Spread that word. Get the likes up. Last week was a really interesting week with all the digital traction. One of those shorts that I put up on Instagram, it's like 167,000 views. Yeah. It's
Wild.
167,000 views. It's crazy.
I think it's what's so funny is just like that they're still, and they might be AI generated, so like who do I know? But there's still like these like articles coming out from like random news sources on it, and it's like, yo, you're like 6 days too late.
They what? So they're jumping in now. They want piece of the pie.
It'd be like MSN.com. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah.
So what do they aggregate? Do they just aggregate stuff? I don't even know how that works.
I'm not sure how it works either, but I have a feeling just each of like these email sites or whatever, New York Sports Daily News, like a random site, they just kind of take probably the information from other sites, have it like some kind of bot reword it and just spit it out real quick. Got it.
Yeah, that was a fun week. A lot was going on. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Now, these aggregators out there. Oh, let me see if I can get a few clicks. That stuff took off there, but I'm not going to get into that today. Like I said, if I'm not pulled into stuff, I don't start stuff. I'll never be that guy. I have no interest doing that. I have said many times over, I'm a content guy. I love talking sports. If I get pulled into stuff, depending upon what's said, who says it, then I will respond to that in turn, but I don't go looking for that. Last week was a little different, though, obviously. But we moved past that. All right, BT, what are your thoughts on Mendoza keeping in Lovelady? Yeah, and not having three relief pitchers available to pitch in the last game of the series? Overblown. Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, he said that Devin Williams was not available, and who else was not available? He said the two of them were not. No, I don't think that's a massive deal. I'm not a big Lovelady fan. I don't know. Just first of all, the name just looks. It's like a parody account. Like, I don't know. Like if the Mets were like the Mets used to be back in the day, like the Wilpons, and like 75 win teams, and 15,000 people there on a Tuesday night instead of all this juice and this energy. Now they got to get a bit. Didn't make the playoffs last year, but they've got to. They're obviously, taking many steps forward. And I think the Mets will definitely be a playoff team this year. But, Lovelady's the kind of name, I don't know, like he should be out there on the mound where the Mets are losing to the Marlins 8-1 in front of 11,000 people on a Tuesday night in September. And the Mets are 15 games behind the Braves and the Phillies. I don't know. It's weird every time I see it. Every single time I see that. But no, I mean, not a really big deal. I wouldn't overreact to that. Let me say one thing, too, See, this is the problem with baseball. All right, that's why I think Rob Manfred is a little less than as a commissioner. I think he's a good guy, but and I think Silver's a worse commissioner, as I've said many times. I don't think Adam Silver's good at all. Many times I've talked about that. But Mike, this is something you want real evidence how the baseball fans impacted by their greed. I'm going to give it to you. All right. So everybody was complaining about Netflix opening day for the Yankees, and I get it. Opening day for the Mets on Peacock. I get it. I know. Hey, listen, it's 2026. The rights, the revenue through the roof. Yeah, I spent some time on it on Friday. Like I thought the post game with the varsity jackets and Jameis Winston slinging hot dogs. I mean, he was out of his mind. He was ridiculously. He was just too hyper. It was just a weird delivery. But I thought everything else was pretty good. I thought Sabathia was good. I thought the game sounded good. Netflix's camera angles are phenomenal. So I didn't waste a lot of time on that. There was a lot of, lull from the time, from the time it started to the time, like the coverage to the actual first pitch. You get the WWE, announcement, the energy there. Yeah, you get all right, a lot of bells and whistles. Let's go. Let's play baseball already. So I'm not saying that didn't bother me, but I didn't really go in deep because I understand it. And I've got Netflix, and I try to stand up for the older generation that doesn't have it, but it's an unwinnable battle because it's not going to change, right? But here's where they really do mess up. And this is where we, the consumers, get screwed. So yesterday was a gorgeous day, all right? The Saturday was chilly. Yesterday I got a little color, a little early look on the tan, J-Rod. At least on the face.
No, it's beautiful out right now.
It's nice today too. They're actually cutting the grass already. Oh, those guys! You give these guys an inch, they'll take a yard. You don't have to cut the grass. The grass hasn't grown yet. But if they can bang me out for an extra, what is it, $50 a week, whatever the hell it is, of course they're gonna do it. Yeah. I hear the lawnmower this morning. I'm like, it hasn't grown yet. What are you doing? Either way, I get it. Trying to make a buck. We all are. So yesterday was gorgeous. My son had 10 o'clock baseball game out in Flemington, New Jersey, at this place called Diamond Nation, which is absolutely gorgeous. What an amazing, it was just taken over by Cal Ripken. It's gorgeous. It's so good. It's so good, right? So that was at 10 o'clock. And then he had a game at 2, more local, right? So I was outside watching neither of these teams I coached. I was just in my chair, spitting seeds, hanging out with some dads. Absolutely gorgeous. I get home. I watch the end of the Met game. Yanks are on the West Coast. Can I get Yankees baseball on the first Sunday in the Major League season? No, you can't, because these filthy, greedy slobs who run these sports, they don't give a rat's ass about you. They don't care about me. They don't care. And this is the problem. And I understand you got to make money. That drives every single engine. Everything is about money. I could do the best show in the world. If I don't keep getting sponsors and I don't keep growing this thing in, guess what? It's not going to be successful. Just the bottom line. So there is to it. Of course, I'll blame J-Rod for any failure. And that's the business. That's the way of the world. The world spins based on the strength of the dollar. If you've got money, it enables you to do more stuff. If you don't have money, you're desperate, you're locked out, you're borrowing money, which then hurts you down the road as you have to pay back with a percentage. You need money. You need money to do anything. I get it. That's why I don't rail on opening day. I didn't love it, but I didn't go nuts on the Yankees playing Netflix opening day. To come home after watching 2 fun baseball games, young kids getting after it, it's one of my favorite thing to do, right? And to plop down on the couch. I hadn't gotten a good sandwich in a while because it's not football. So I went, I got a little eggplant, right? A little fresh mutts. And a little roasted red pepper and a little,
go.
Yeah.
That's a goat. That's just a goat.
Little teeny tiny trace of mayo, nice Italian hero. I even got a bag of chips, right? Because I've been eating pretty healthy. I'm like, I'm going to treat myself here. And I knew that the Yankees weren't playing. I wasn't surprised, but I'm watching the Mets, and then I'm like, obviously getting ready to UConn Duke. I'm like, I would just love to watch the Yankees play baseball today. The first weekend in the Major League season, and the Yankees didn't play. I understand. If you open up on a Thursday, depending upon where you are. Now, the Yankees could have played in succession because they're out west, if you're opening up in Philly and Baltimore and New York and Cincinnati and Cleveland and Detroit, maybe a few other spots, you want to have that built-in next day in case you get snowed out or rained out or it's just, 6 degrees out, whatever it might be, because the weather does fluctuate a lot at this stage. It could be Saturday was really cold, freezing. And then yesterday was gorgeous. So you had a not 15. You had about a 10 to 12, maybe 15 degree hike, depending upon where you were. And that was from one day to the next. So that's common. So I get it. Certain spots you want to build out. All right, Yankees play Thursday. Don't play Friday. Hold now I'm getting confused. Wait, Yankees opened up on Wednesday. I'm an idiot. Yankees opened up on Wednesday, off day Thursday, blah, Friday, nothing Sunday. I just don't understand that. It's not a conventional move. And it's a move that just tells us, again, they don't have to get to the top of the mountaintop and scream, we don't care about you. Hey, fans, F you. We got you. We got your money. We got your emotions. Suckers. They could literally go to the top of a mountain and yell that, and it will be applicable. But they don't need to, because everything that they do tells us that. Now, I'm not talking about the money generation. I'm not talking about rev generation with Netflix and Peacock, whatever. I'm talking about Sunday, first weekend of the season, and there's no Yankee baseball. It's unacceptable. That's just unacceptable. I wanted to watch baseball. How about this, J-Rod? Now, by the time you get married at this stage, it's going to be $100. You'll see what I mean in a second. So you want to talk about a racket. Just a little side turn here. So any of you who have girls as well, my daughter's softball, Santa brought it. So the softball bat was, Santa took care of that, but I know that's not cheap, right? So baseball bats in particular, they're $400 a pop, 400 each.
Yeah, they're nuts.
400, dude. And you outgrow them, right? Think about this. Some people, that's all relative. If you have money, you don't complain. But some people complain about the price of drivers. You want to get a nice TaylorMade, the new Callaway TaylorMade, whatever, Ping, really souped up driver. No, now those are probably more like 500. But you can conceivably use a driver for 2 years, 3 years. You can use it for a long time. Yep. You can get it reshafted. You can get it regripped. If something breaks, most of these companies do the right thing. You send it, they fix it, whatever. So, but these kids, you don't outgrow. I don't outgrow my TaylorMade driver. Unfortunately, I've never grown into it because I hit the ball like shit. But I know I'm not going to suddenly put on, well, you can always put weight on, but I'm not going to grow, become 3 inches taller, and this thing doesn't fit. I had it made individually, like, personally to my spec. So I've got a club that fits me. So if you're going to spend $500 for a golf club, it's justified if you love golf, if you have the money to do it. Boom. Yep. But baseball, these kids outgrow bat every year. So it's literally 7U, 400, 8U, 400, 9U, 400, 10U, 400, 400. Then you get to this BB core stuff that I'm not even near yet, but that's coming down the pike as well. Whatever. If you play baseball, I know the lacrosse sticks are not cheap either. It's a racket, man. So like you a snacker. So, how much is sneakers? $170 for everything's expensive. I understand that. But here's the thing that I think bothers me even more. And it was a measly $11, right? Now, like in New Jersey, and they'll travel a little bit sometimes out of state, but generally, if you play competitive club baseball and even very competitive travel baseball, you will go to one of two facilities in the Northeast. Well, actually, I know that there's one, so maybe three. I know that there's one out east, Lasorda, but we've never played there. We haven't gone to Long Island. Maybe we will at some point, but I know that that's out there as well. There is Diamond Nation, which I just mentioned, in Flemington, and awesome. And then there is Adventure Sports in Jackson, New Jersey, right by Great Adventure. Okay, got it. Yeah, it's a long hike. I mean, geez, it's awesome. Great ball. It's fun. I love it. Right. Well organized, awesome. Great snack stands, tremendous stuff for the kids. We're in between games, video games. It's fun. And do you know that when I went to watch my son play, because I'm not a coach on this team, that I had to pay him? And I'm not calling out Diamond Nation because it's the best facility. I haven't been to Ripken yet, and I know Ripken just took over Diamond. It's the best facility I've been to. It is awesome. I love it. Right? They charged me $11 to go and sit and watch my son play a game. 11U baseball game. $11. Oh, that's common, dude. Every parent has to pay.
That's crazy. I mean, I mean, you probably are as well. Like, you probably live in a small, relatively smallish suburban. I've never heard of that. Like going to my brother's games, you just pulled up a little folding chair.
You pull up to the park.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, there were dads hammering back Budweisers. Now they just can smoking cigarettes. Now they just conceal it a little bit more. The parents are still drinking, but they hide it better. $11. And like, it's funny. Like I gas up, right? I don't know. I've got an SUV, $90, whatever the hell it is to fill it up, right? The bat, all right, $400. Sneakers for the kids, cleats, this, that. I never go to dinner, depending upon if you have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine with your wife, a couple of $100. I am not cheap. Okay. Now I'm also not independently wealthy. I am not cheap. I am always that guy. Because my dad's this guy, I am always the guy. If I'm at a bar, if I'm out with my friends, if I'm on the golf course and the cart girl comes up, right? It's just instinctual for me to say, and I don't drink much when I play golf because I'm driving. I might have a beer. I'm generally driving 20, 30 miles. So I'm certainly not going to get rocked unless I'm on my boys trip and like we're Ubering and we're away for 3 or 4 nights. That's different. Then there's no rules. There's no rules. I do whatever we want at that point on golf course. But I don't drink much on the golf course. But even if I want a Gatorade, right? Gatorade, bottle of water, I don't know, a protein bar, if I'm feeling tired, making the turn. I'm always the guy who said, yeah, sure. Like just kind of wave her flag her down. Yeah. And hey, guys, what do you want? Yeah, Dan, what do you need? Frank, what do you want? Scott, what do you want? Bravo, what do you need? Maddie, what do you like? Guys I usually play with. What do you want? And generally, none of us really drink when we're playing. So it might be a game, nothing. I'm always that guy. If I'm at a bar and there's a function and, it's not like a prepay and you're just tipping. Hey, I got... Mike, what do you drink? What do you need? Yeah, good. What do you got? What do you need? Vodka on the rock? Yep, what do you need? And then, of course, my wife. That's just how I am. So I am not cheap. But doesn't it seem inherently wrong? Now, I know you got to – the fields are magnificent. So
that was my question, was like, what kind of facility are they upkeeping where they need a ticket to be sold to a game?
It's the best. I'm going to describe it for you. So – now, there are other events like when we go to Staten Island, Great Kills, which is I don't think you have to pay. No, you don't pay there. Great Kills, there's a lot of perfect games there. Great Kills, shout out, Staten Island, old school. I'm there. I was there probably 7 times last summer. We'll be back a lot this year. Love them. Best snack stand that I've ever seen. The food's amazing. People are amazing. A lot of love for Staten Island. A lot of love for Great Kills Little League, right? That's free. That's old school. You kind of feel like there's some turf fields, but you kind of feel like you're going into the 80s and 90s in a good way, right? And they upkeep it nice, but it's like in the middle of a neighborhood. It's kind of like Wrigley Field in the middle of houses. It's awesome, right? The ones that I'm talking about are these monstrosity complexes. Now,
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Right. Now, there's I think yesterday there was at least 6 fields because he was on Diamond 6 for his game. And they've got a really nice scoreboard. And these games at this level, you can't start an inning, I think, after an hour and 45 minutes. So as soon as the first pitch is thrown, right, there's got a clock and it'll count down, minute and 12 minutes, 1 hour and 12 minutes left in the game, 42 minutes. So you know that. They had a radar gun up yesterday. So kid throws a pitch, 57, 58 miles an hour. That's amazing. The dugouts are brick and beautiful. The turf is brand new. The batting cages are sublime. Plenty of parking. Not a knock on the facility at all. But just doesn't it seem un-American to have to reach into your pocket and pay? And then I couldn't, I had to sign up. I couldn't. It's bad enough. I very rarely have cash on me, but I did have I had a 20 spot from, maybe from Washington, D.C., tipping out, the bellhop and the cars and stuff to get the whatever. I just had a few bucks on me. So I'm like, hey, $11. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I was like, $11. I go to hand her 20. She's like, no cash. I'm like, all right. I'm like, you guys do Venmo? They're like, well, yeah, but you got to register. I'm like, let me put my glasses on. I wasn't getting mad at her. It's not her fault. But inwardly, I'm like, well, this is just a pain in the ass. And there's 7 minutes from the first pitch, and I know he's going to be batting in the top of the order. I'm like, and I know I got to walk across the whole freaking complex. I don't want to miss his first at bat. Me, little old man eyes. I'm looking down at my phone, because I couldn't find my glasses for a second because I don't need glasses to watch him play. Just if I look at the phone, I'm like, oh, well, you go to this link. Oh, here's the waiver. Oh, you got to do this. Do you want to get notifications? No, I don't want notifications. I just want to watch my son play baseball. That's really all I want to do. And I didn't say it with that tone because she was young high school, three high school girls, tremendous young ladies, really, really good. But is that insane? $11.
Yeah, it's crazy. Listen, unless they're giving you a halftime performance, I don't see where this is where this is worth it.
No, it is because the baseball is great and the kids love it. But hey, all right, read this for me. Now this is easy. At VL-is-here to stay. All right. I didn't see this till this morning, to be fair. Did you see your boy Jason Dominguez drop that pop-up in AAA? I did. It looked like he was on skates. You still think he's better than Jones? Well, I know he's a better hitter than Spencer Jones because Spencer Jones strikes out basically 40% of the time against AA pitching. Let's see how he does, this year. Let's see if he gets a call. Let's call up. Listen, maybe he gets a cup of coffee in September if he hits 40 home runs in the minors. I don't think Spencer Jones factors into the Yankees' future at all. I don't. Unless there is a radical, and it would have to be a radical, and you won't even know this until, you'd have to get a couple of months of evidence here, a radical overhaul to his approach in the batter's box. He swings and misses too much. And when you do that in AA, and I don't care how far you hit a baseball, when you strike out 38, 39, 40% of the time, it's untenable. You cannot play Major League Baseball if you get up 10 times and you strike out 4.5. You can't have it. There might even be 5 because as you get to the majors, the pitching is better. So listen, he hits bombs. I know that. He can run. He's a better center fielder. I've also said that. The Yankees view him as a center fielder more than Dominguez. He might even have a better arm. Maybe. He's a pitcher at Vanderbilt for a little bit early, I think, and he threw – I think he got clocked at 94, 95 because I looked on his perfect game profile like a lunatic to see how good he was when he was young. No, I don't think that Spencer Jones – forget about – I know you're kidding. Spencer Jones, to me, has no correlation right now to Jason Dominguez. I think that Jason Dominguez should have made the Major League team. That bothered me. I told Booney, didn't want to hear it. I told you, you guys didn't want to hear it. I knew that Jones was not making this team, and I told you that in February. And I also said, now I didn't know it, but I strongly surmised, and I communicated it to you on this show, on the channel, that I really didn't think Dominguez was making the team either. And that bothered me. Inherently, I thought there's something wrong with that. Now, it's not like he hit 303, but Jason Dominguez proved to be, at the very least, a competent Major League player. He can run. He didn't hit 209. He didn't strike out 37% of the time. His walk-in contact rate was pretty good. Stole 20 bases. I thought there'd be more power. I've said that, but I think it'll come when you play every day. his bugaboo was the outfield. He's horrendous. I don't know what happened to him. I don't understand. Yes, I did see it. He was turning around like in circles. Was it windy? I guess that's the only out. I didn't even see. Was it it doesn't matter. You can't, it doesn't matter. You can't look that bad, as the Martian, like touted as some uber prospect. You can't look. I'm not saying you can't like boot a ball, sinking a liner, take a step in, it goes over your head. That was a pop-up. Now it was pretty deep, and if the winds are swirling, was it off a lefty bat? I don't know, and I don't even care. But I just say that because if it was a lefty bat, you got that reverse spin and going to the line. Who the hell knows? What I don't know. I don't know. Like, even kids that I watch now, like at this age, like 10, 11, 12 years old, if you're an 11-year-old shortstop, right? This is the most, forget about from the right side hitting. This is the most confounding thing to me about Jason Dominguez. This is what I don't get. If you are an 11-year-old, 10, 11 years old, and you play shortstop, right? And you're I'm not saying you're Ozzie Smith, but you're wit, but you're good, right? You're a good short. You catch the ball. You make all the plays, right? If you take that kid and you put him in the outfield, or you put him at second base, or you put him anywhere, really, behind the plate, put him at first base if he's tall enough, put him at third for sure. The kid's going to look functional. He's going to look fine. I don't understand for the life of me how a guy who was touted as a center fielder, like this great defensive center fielder, who looks like Todd Hundley in left field. I don't understand that. The erosion of his defensive game is beyond alarming. And I got to blame the Yankee organization on that because that speaks to development. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, it's Dominguez. He's the one who's in control of, throws and getting proper reads and angles and catching pop-ups. But that is mystifying to me. Like, it's one thing, right? If you're thought to be a great defensive outfielder and you've got immense power, like basically Dominguez, the scouting report, run like the wind. You may run like haze, but you hit like shit. Run like the wind, rocket for an arm, go get it in the outfield, power from both sides of the plate, 5-tool prospect, number one prospect in the franchise, nickname, which I never get into nicknames. I can't stand it, but he had one. The next Mickey Mantle, all that. Me and Sal were talking about this back in the day. And even then I didn't buy into it. I'm like, I'm interested. I like him, but enough with the Martian nonsense, right? How do you go from that to be perceived to be that kind of a player to immediately being deemed not good enough to play center field where they don't even give you a shot? You don't even get a look. To now, you literally look like an inept, incapable, over your head train wreck in left field. That I don't understand. And I think I know baseball pretty well. Like, I think I understand the game decent enough. You want to tell me we're talking about a shortstop going to third? Like, say if A-Rod was awful early or, Bichette's having some issues throwing the ball. All right. It's a different position, a little different spin. Third base ball's on you quicker, longer throw. He doesn't have a great arm, although I did see he threw one ball across the diamond. I think it was like 95.6. StatCast had him. Either way, like, that's different. Or you want to tell me like Ben Rice, all right? How about that ball he rocked off the right field wall? Oh, I think he's going to be an all-star this year. I've said that. I think Ben Rice is going to be awesome this year. Awesome. Like, you tell me like Ben Rice, who didn't get to play much in college. Remember, he was a catcher in the Ivy. I think it was Dartmouth in the Ivy League, right? Then one of his years got canceled because of COVID, and now he's trying to learn to play first base. All right, like, that's going to take. He'll be fine. I think he'll be functional. But like, if he shits the bed the first week and he's awful, first month he's defensively deficient. You're like, all right, let's give him a little bit of time here. Right? He's pretty much been a catcher up until last year where he's trying to make this transition. Like, there's certain things I can understand. Even I mentioned Todd Hundley. Todd Hundley going from behind the plate where everything's in front of you and you see the whole diamond to a completely different vantage point going to play left field. Now, he could have been out there for 5 years. He was never going to be remotely competent, but at least there's a transition. It's a different read. It's a different reaction. It's a different timing mechanism. Ball's on you later than when it is behind the plate, I just don't understand for the life of me what in the world is going on with Jason Dominguez in the outfield. Good God. All right. His mental state's broken. Avery, you might be right. It very well might be a mental thing. Well, the Yankees haven't done him any favors by basically telling us not good enough to play center field. The team's being wishy-washy on him. Sure, it hasn't helped with that. He'll only succeed with a change of scenery on a team that truly believes in him. Maybe. Hashtag be real. I mean, maybe. Super encouraged by the Yankees pitching so far. You know, I see Bird as a Nelly type reliever. Bird looked really good. BK Liner or B Kleiner, however you want to say. Thank you, BK. Yeah, Yankees pitching is going to be phenomenal. I mean, Cam Schlittler's going to be an absolute beast. You know, Will Warren was laboring. His pitch count got up there, had some issue with 2 outs. You know, that was a little problematic there, but you got a chance to get into the Yankee bullpen. The Yankee, and Booney even said this post-game, like the Yankee bullpen roles are still being defined. So that's going to be a work in progress. But everything that I've said about the Yankees, we know they're going to score a lot of runs. Will they hit when it matters? I can't answer that now. I don't know the answer to that. They're going to hit 200-plus home runs, probably lead baseball in runs or, you know, top 3, you know, whatever. Judge already has 2. And offensively, they'll be among the elite, you know, OPS, all the measurements, runs scored, home runs, all that stuff. On-base percentage, I think. The Yankees will be an elite offensive team. Will they hit elite pitching? Well, they haven't for years, so why would I say that they will? But I won't say that they won't. I'm just going to say, let me see if they make any changes, and let me see what some of these younger guys look like. Let me see what happens at short, blah, blah, blah. But I am incredibly confident if Garrett Cole comes back and is Garrett Cole, that the Yankees will have the best. And I know there's others. The Dodgers rotation's sick. Red Sox, I know there's others. Mets rotation's pretty good. I know. But I think that the Yankees rotation is the thing that's going to give them a chance to win the World Series this year. If Garrett Cole comes back and he's batting practice, then, well, that kind of changes my opinion. Obviously, this is all prefaced by the thought that, you know, people talking to Boone, watching him and others around baseball, that Garrett Cole, you know, after a couple of starts, whatever, shake the rust, that they really believe he's going to be back to being Garrett Cole. If anything, maybe better because he's had a chance to regenerate physically. It's been a workhorse. So you get a chance to kind of, you know, let your body ice up a bit. I think he's going to be this Yankee rotation is going to be fun, man. And then you get Clark Schmidt back. You know, I'm not a big Louis Heel fan at this point. Who knows where he'll factor in? I'm curious to see how Weathers pitches against Seattle. But no, the Yankees rotation looks really good. Yanks are 3-0. Mets rotation looks really good. I just like the way the Mets lineup. See, you know, the Yankees lineup is pretty much the same. Caballero, Volpe, whatever, a little tweak here and there. McMahon to start the year. I just watched the Mets lineup, and I just like it better than I liked last year's lineup. I just do. There's more well-rounded approaches. There's more professional hitters. There's more guys that can run. And Bichette hasn't done a damn thing. Wait till Bichette starts raking, which he will. And if you just tuned in, I love what he said, you know, when the Met fan booed him. And it's like, listen, Tino got booed in 96. Soto heard it last year from Met fans when he wasn't clutch early on, didn't run out a ball or two. It's a rite of passage. You know what I mean? You come here. Karl Anthony Towns, he got booed. He's been booed. You know, when those boos stop, when you perform and the team does well, that's it. And I have no doubt. Yeah, I don't even have time to get to the Knicks today. I'm going to do a little bit more on the Knicks tomorrow. So I got to get bouncing here. We'll start wrapping up, Jay. But I think that, you know, what Bichette said tells you this dude is built for New York, man. This
fun,
guy,
man.
You know what I mean?
It was like a fun little quote. Like you can see, man, he's got the sauce. Like.
Yeah, he does. He's got the swag, and more importantly, he's got the talent. He's got the heartbeat. I think he's going to be an absolute dog for the Mets, and I think he's going to be phenomenal for the Mets. So New York baseball's off to a good start. Wrapped up the St. John stuff. Obviously, if you guys just tuned in, did a lot on that. We'll do some Final Four stuff later in the week, a little bit. Illinois, UConn. Start moving to the draft as well. Of course, Michigan, Arizona after that. Baseball's underway. Was a very interesting, you know, big-ish regular season game for the Knicks last night, but I got to run do some other stuff. I'll do a little Knicks tomorrow. There's really nothing that can happen. That's why I was so into last night's game. That's going to give me either confidence or jolt my confidence in the Knicks moving forward. The bottom line is the 7 games that they won in a row, they beat pretty shitty teams. You know, they did. The last 2 games that they've lost, it's been against 2
good teams. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, and even preceding the 7-game win streak, when they lost to the Lakers on that Sunday and the Clippers out west, they didn't play well. Both of those, not that they're great, like, you know, but they're good. They're better than the Wizards, who they beat a couple of games ago. Some of these teams that really aren't going anywhere. So, you know, once the Knicks really start, your boys all over it. I can't wait. I will say this. What do they have? 40 the Knicks? 48 wins? Yeah, they're 48-27. They got 7 to go. Like if the Knicks go, let's say the Knicks go 5-2, they're 4-3. Now go up 5-2. then you're a 53-win team. Well, I feel like that's what I thought they would be. I actually said 54, but I thought I'd feel better about the 54. Now, I'm not as down as I was a while ago. Like, I think Cat's role has been, streamlined here. He's bought into it a little bit more. You didn't get much from the bench last night, which is interesting. And I got to see if McBride's okay because he came back and it looks like he got hurt.
Yeah, that was his first game.
But he got hurt again.
Oh, no.
It looked like he got hurt again, and it looked like it may have been the same spot. You know about, Alvarado, obviously, Jordan Clarkson.
He's been all right. Alvarado's been all right. He had a good first week, though.
He did. Hit a couple threes last night, but not a ton more than that. So I'll just about wrap it up, man. Appreciate you guys. J-Rod, good show today. He's going to get those shorts out. Hey, one more time, get it up on the screen. Wednesday, the Jets. Let's get the Jets thing up. It'll be episode number 2 with myself and Jake Asman and Rich Samini. Awesome crew. First episode was a blast. We already have over 2,000 subs. I think it's 10,000 views on the first episode, which will be nothing as we get deeper and deeper and deeper into this all year. I mean, into the draft, into the OTAs, into training camp, during the season. I think there'll be a point where we wind up doing more than one show a week. So that's going to be a blast with that crew. Episode number 2, the Jets Collective. Go sub it, go like it, go support it. 7 p.m. on YouTube on Wednesday. And then let's get it up. Look at this guy. Look at him. And one thing, and I can clown him on this, and don't think for a second, I am going to clown him on that haircut that he's still rocking. I remember saying to him, and he used to make fun of my head. He's like, yeah, you got this big box head, like Popeye, right? I'm like, all right, well, I mean, what do you want me to do? I'm like, are you going to keep going with that? Like, whatever that thing is, are we going fade? Are we going, like, what are we doing with this? Like, it's beginning to now, the hairline is now getting further and further further back. And I remember saying to him, this was in 2005. I'm like, dude, why don't you tighten up the sides, man? Give it go a little one clip, fade it in. Let's go. You look younger. You look like an absolute badass. He's like, nah, BT, come on, man. He goes, look at this little peanut head, man. He says he's got a little, he says that's his word. I guarantee that he'll use that term again on Wednesday. I got a peanut head. A peanut head don't look good like that. I need the hair to hide. I need the hair. What do you say? I need the hair to hide that peanut head, man. Come on, BT. Everybody's got a box head like you. So I am curious where my boy is on the hair because he has not changed his hairstyle in a long. He's like one of those OGs who's still rocking, and nothing wrong with him because they came back, but like one of the OGs who's still wearing the Adidas shell tops. You know what I mean?
Sir, of
course. Still rocking. I don't mean just because they're retro. I mean because he never changed out of them.
Yeah. You know? I mean, the dudes who are still in the Puma jumpsuit. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Well, listen, here's one thing I got to say. When it comes to style, like in terms of what his wardrobe.
He's got it on. Oof. He's that guy.
Ooh. Nobody touches Stephen A. I mean, nobody. So be a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff to hit with him. It's not going to be an interview. That's going to be a conversation with my guy. Blessed and honored. He's coming on the show. It's going to be great. So that's Wednesday. Jets Collective Wednesday. Like it, sub it, get it out there, share all the stuff, comment. All right. It's been a very busy week or so. Haven't had as much of a chance to jump into the comments. I'm going to carve out some time today to do that. So J-Rod, great work. I'm happy you're feeling better. And that's it. So I'm going to get out of here. Have a great Monday. Enjoy what's left of your day. If something breaks, something wild, I'll jump on. I'm going to do a couple of live watches at some point, not when the Yankees are on the West Coast, but at some point within the first month of the season, I'm going to bust out some of that, do a couple of live Nick watch parties, and obviously a ton of draft stuff coming, ton of draft content coming, not just for the Jets and the Giants, the entire NFL. So have an awesome Monday. Catch you tomorrow. Unleashed out. See ya.
This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me? This is Unleash. Are you listening? Can you hear me?
With your host, Brandon